let's talk a little bit about energy systems, exercises, and healthy diets. We know that we get energy from food, and we can separate food in three groups: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Our body is accommodated to save energy in the form of fat, and the most dangerous fat, it is fat which is at our organs, especially liver and kidney. And while we are getting energy through food, inside the human inside of our body, in our cells, adenosine triphosphate molecules are used as a battery. They release energy in place where it is necessary, and then the battery can be recharged. Here at this slide we see the molecule, schematically represented the molecule of adenosine 3-phosphate. 3 phosphate groups at the left, 1, 2, 3, and then adenosine group here at the right with white color. And schematically we again see that adenosine 3-phosphate molecules, they have this adenosine group and the phosphate groups, and when one phosphate group is separated, there will be a release of energy in the reaction of adenosine 3-phosphate goes to adenosine D-phosphate, so with two molecules of the phosphate, and with phosphate group separation and energy. And the battery can be recharged in mitochondria in two ways: one with oxygen and another way without oxygen. So we have these two ways of recharging of the battery: anaerobic and aerobic. Anaerobic system, it is does not require oxygen to generate or recharge adenosine 3-phosphate molecules, and aerobic system, it is the system which requires oxygen to generate molecules of adenosine 3-phosphate. Here, schematically, animal cell is presented. So we see the plasma cell membrane. We see nucleus and a variety of a large number of organelles, small organs of the cell. And the most important organelles are mitochondria. Mitochondria, it is plural from mitochondrion. One mitochondrion, plural mitochondria. Mitochondria is producing molecules adenosine 3-phosphate for energy, so it is providing, it is powerhouse of the cell. Here schematically mitochondrion is presented here, and we see that we can get energy recharging of the battery producing adenosine 3-phosphate molecules is from glucose with oxygen and without oxygen, and from fatty acids and from fat by burning fatty acids in quite complicated cycles with the release of CO2 and water. And so that so we see difference that glucose can give energy without oxygen, and fatty acids only in presence of oxygen. So when we need some physical efforts, what is happening? First, the animal cell, like muscle, using stored adenosine 3-phosphate molecules. But this stored energy is lasting not long, 3 seconds maximum, and then when adenosine 3-phosphate molecules are depleted, the recovery, the recharging of the adenosine 3-phosphate molecules is starting in the mechanism which is has name adenosine 3-phosphate creatine system. This is blue color plot. Okay, it starts about 1 second after the necessary physical effort, and it is lasting only 10-20 seconds. Okay, so we see that in principle there are 3 different energy systems. One is this adenosine phosphate creatine system, which has quick response, and then next will be a lactic acid system. It includes glucose it is using glucose, and it is lasting few minutes. And aerobic system, it is for long duration exercises. So phosphate creatine molecules are stored as a source of energy in living cells. And what can happen then, when adenosine 3-phosphate is turned to adenosine diphosphate can react with phosphate creatine or creatine phosphate, it is the same molecule, and producing adenosine 3-phosphate and plus creatine. So it is lasting only 20 seconds in total, this mechanism, and to recover from this it takes 2-3 minutes. So we see here again that phosphate creatine molecules can be broken down to phosphate group and creatine, and with the release of energy, and then this energy is used in the reaction of adenosine diphosphate plus phosphate group and plus this energy, and producing adenosine 3-phosphate molecules. So 3 minutes to recover, lasting only 20 seconds. So then next we see this gray line, lactic acid system, and it starts about from 10 seconds after the physical effort, and it is lasting 2-3 minutes, not longer. So lactic energy system is breaking down glucose or glycogen. Glycogen is a polymer from glucose molecules, and then in energy can be used to produce adenosine 3-phosphate, but also it is producing lactic acid. Lactic acid makes the environment inside the cell very acidic, so that muscles will not work, and we can feel very tired and like burning, and some feeling of the burning of our muscles. So here we see in that then when the lactic system is over, then the aerobic system starts to work. After it takes 1 minute to start to work, this slow system, and glycogen and glucose reacts with oxygen and produce adenosine 3-phosphate. In this system, lactic acid is not formed as because oxygen is available, and lactic acid is burning with oxygen, with a release of CO2 and carbon dioxide and water. Okay, then we see that aerobic system gives energy slowly, so it cannot be used for very intensive activity, but it can last long time. So what we have here, adenosine diphosphate molecules take phosphate group from environment, and with presence of glycogen and all the oxygen, they go to adenosine 3-phosphate, and with pyruvic acid further gets oxidated to water and carbon dioxide, with the release of 34 molecules of adenosine 3-phosphate. So here's the scheme. The glycogen goes converts to pyruvic acid with release of some small energy, and then in presence of oxygen in quite complicated cycles, then this pyruvic acid get oxidated to carbon dioxide and water, and in total 34 adenosine 3-phosphate molecules can be recharged from one glucose molecules. The fat or triglycerides, fat is glyceride, so it is a molecule which consists of glycerol and 3 fatty acids, and then with enzyme of lipase, triglycerides in our stomach, in our guts, can be converted to glycerol and fatty acids, and glycerol would be oxidized in a scheme similar to glucose, but fatty acid will be oxidized to CO2 and water in quite complicated cycles, with the release of 130 molecules of adenosine 3-phosphate. So we see that adenosine 3-phosphate, the burning of fat is very, very efficient. But okay, let's summarize it. So first, we use storage of the adenosine 3-phosphate in molecules. It is lasting not long, only enough for punch or in boxing. And then a system of recharging of adenosine 3-phosphate molecules starts to work with phosphate creatine, and it is lasting 10 seconds. And then starts anaerobic burning of glycogen and glucose. Glycogen stored in our muscles. It is enough only for 45 seconds. And then this system of anaerobic conversion of glycogen to lactic acid starts to work. It is lasting 2-3 minutes maximum. And then after 1 minute, from the start of the physical effort, intensive physical exercises, the aerobic system starts to work in presence of oxygen. Oxidation first goes oxidation of glycogen, and through lactic acid, and that lactic acid further oxidized to pyruvic acid, to water and CO2. And only after 4 minutes, it takes longer, after 4 minutes we can start to burn fatty acids. So then you see that it takes time to start to burning of fat. Okay, then here is this like summarizing. We have aerobic system and anaerobic system. Aerobic system, it is with presence of oxygen. It can be glucose, and fat can be converted to CO2 and water with very high efficiency, 38 molecules of adenosine 3-phosphate per every glucose molecules, and 10 times more per every fat molecule. So it's very efficient. The use of fat is as a source of energy is very good, very efficient way to use stored energy in our body. So the products are CO2 and water. And anaerobic system without presence of oxygen, they are lasting not long, and they are not efficient. They produce only 2 molecules of adenosine 3-phosphate per glucose molecule, and with lactic acid makes us very tired and with feeling of burning in our muscles. So if we compare how much energy is stored in a form of fat or in form of carbohydrates in our body, then glycogen, it's only enough for 80 kilometers of some trip by bicycle, while the fat, even for normal body, we can go about 2,000 kilometers. So you see that storing of energy in a form of fat is very convenient, very useful, very efficient. And then this is why we are getting we consume carbohydrates, but carbohydrates are not accumulated in our body. Carbohydrates are getting converted into fat. So high carbohydrate diet makes us fatty, makes us overweight. So it is widely accepted that burning of fat can go in long distance cycling or marathon exercises. So longer, actually 5 minutes is actually longer than 1 hour. Typically 2-3 hours is necessary to start burning of fat. So there was some research when 2 groups of athletes were selected about with the same physical performances, and one group was sitting for long and high carbohydrate diet with carbohydrates providing 60% fat, 25% protein, 50%. It is so-called balanced diet. And another group was sitting and using so-called low carb diet, when most of energy will getting from fat, 70% protein, 20% carbohydrates, only 10%. Then performances of these athletes were measured, versus intensity of physical exercises. And with increase of physical exercises, let's see that fat starts to burning and more and have some maximum for athletes with high carbohydrate diet, only half gram per minute, only half gram per minute, while for athletes which were accommodated already to burn fat with a low carbohydrate diet, they can go at much more higher physical exercise intensity, and they're burning almost 2.5 more fat per minute. So here again, high carbohydrate diet compared with low carbohydrate diet, we see that for low carbohydrate diet with mostly using of fat for food, in exercises, this group of athletes were using about 90% of energy from burning of fat, only 10% from carbohydrate. While the group with high carbohydrate diet, they were burning about half of fat and half carbohydrate. So it is not enough to make exercises to burn fat. It is first we have to accommodate our body to the special diet, low carbonate diet. And again, that it is if we see that we have a huge storage of glycogen, 80 kilometers per hour, and it can be so it is for me. Normally I'm making like 40 kilometers per day, and certainly it is not enough to get to burn all the glycogen and start to burn enough fat. So without this accommodation to special diet. Moreover, it was measured that our metabolic rate, so our metabolism, so all demand of the energy is for normal, for just for base for base without exercises is big enough. Physical activity gives us some burning of energy, but it is not so much in comparison with total metabolism. Yeah, for men it is especially so and men are burning energy mostly without exercises. Exercises adding something, but not so much. Moreover, if we increase the intensity of physical activity of our exercises, what we see that in total metabolism and slow down and gets stabilized, because because our body tries to save energy, and it shuts down other activity in our body. So increase of physical activity will not give us anything good. We will only feel tired after exercises, and but will not burn more energy. There was also such experiment when the few groups were selected. One control group with so-called balanced diet, that consumption of calories of energy was equal to total total needs of energy, and then one group was calorie restriction with exercises, and other group with calorie restriction and without exercises. What it was interesting that after about 4 months, the group with calorie restriction without exercises, they lost more weight than with with exercises. Why it happened? It's actually indication that the group with exercises were keeping the mass of muscles more stable, because if we are starving, if we are getting not enough energy from food, our body decide how to save energy, and they shut down our some processes in our body, and they decide if for keeping our muscles, a lot of energy is necessary. So our body decide to instead burn it, to burn the muscles, and to reduce the metabolic rate, to reduce a need of in the energy. So we need exercises to keep our mass of our body stable, and to keep our muscle mass more stable. Otherwise we will be very weak. And the very low calorie diet is very not absolutely not healthy, because we are losing a lot of muscle weight in this diet, and it is not healthy. So again, it is necessary to say that to burn fat, again, it is first we have to accommodate our body to low carbohydrate diet, and takes time, 2-3 weeks, or sometimes a month. So we have to switch to such diet that most of energy is provided by by animal fat. And while the high carbohydrate or standard diet is not efficient, that do not give us any opportunity to burn fat. So what is the diet we are talking about, so-called low carbohydrate diet? This diet is assumes that we are getting energy mostly from fatty meat, from bacon and the chicken and sausages, and fatty fish, with a lot of eggs and some green vegetables and avocado. Cow butter is very much recommended because it is one of the best animal fats which can be used, and high quality cheese, and very good for health, coconut oil, because coconut oil consists mostly of saturated fats, and it is very good for health. We can consume also some amount of nuts and seeds, despite they have mostly unsaturated fat, unsaturated oil, in some vegetables with low sugar and carbohydrate content, in some amount of berries. For me, such diet is quite difficult to keep, because I like very much sweet maize, and here in Thailand it is at low price and available all year around. And I used to eat this sweet maize a lot. And also I was baking bread, and bread is not allowed. No pasta, no noodles, no rice, no potatoes, no sugar for this diet. See, only most of energy gets from fat, from animal fat, not vegetable fat, because I was already talking in other videos that we should not use this technical vegetable or seed oils, because they are very unhealthy, very bad for our body, and we cannot use we cannot fry meat or fish in this animal in this vegetable oils. It is very much unhealthy. It is so-called junk food. No need, it's better not never eat this. Meanwhile, the so-called standard diet assumes that we are mostly consuming grain and sugars, because every 2-3 hours we have to eat some cookies and bread and pasta and other stuff from grain and rice, and some more amount of sweet fruits like bananas and apples and oranges and grapes, and small amount of vegetables, again sweet vegetables, some sweet vegetables also, and nuts. Very little should be of milk and dairy products, and no red meat. This diet, no red meat is recommended, only chicken and fish and eggs, and very low amount of fats in this standard diet, especially that it is low fat diet. And it's actually result is that quite opposite, that we are getting overweight, we are getting fat from a conversion of carbohydrates to fat, because carbohydrates cannot be accumulated in our body, and we use carbohydrate. We convert this carbohydrate into fat and to store it for time of starvation, but we never starve. So the also carbohydrates make us hungry, and we consume a lot of calories, a lot of food, and this all food gets converted to fat. It is very unhealthy. And as I said already, that we cannot, exercises will not help us to burn down the fat, because our metabolic state in rest already very high, and we can add with physical activity not so much energy consumption, and especially for men, it is not a way to burn fat. Only if we switch to the special diet and we start to use low carbohydrate diet, this is possible. But we need exercises not to lose muscle weight. Our strength of our body should be keep stable with exercises. Exercise is very important. Otherwise, we will lose our strength. Our muscle weight will drop very much, and this starving or fasting at low calorie diet is very much unhealthy, because first we are burning the muscles and then we stay at some low level of metabolism, rate of metabolism. So okay, that's all what I want to say. I want only to only underline such that first, before we start to burn fat with exercises or calorie restriction or whatever, we have to accommodate our body to the special diet. We have to use low carbonate diet when 70 or more % of energy is provided by animal fat. Animal fat, again, what is important to use animal fat, and maybe coconut oil also very good, but not but exclude the vegetable oils from your diet, from your food, and not use any frying in vegetable oils, not to eat so-called processed food or junk food. And only then we can start, after accommodation of our body to the special diet for 3-4 weeks. Only then we can start with to use calorie restriction and exercises to reduce the amount of fat in our body. Only then. So, and I will talk about the special way to reduce amount of fat in next video about the fasting. And but for now, okay, this is the important information, that we have to go to this special diet. It can be carnivore diet, but carnivore diet is not as healthy as ketogenic diet. Ketogenic, it is when we provide enough of protein for our body to keep the metabolism, and we provide enough of protein to keep amount of restore, to build muscles, but yet not so much, because too much of protein needs a lot of liver. A lot of liver is cannot do it, because a lot of uric acid should be released from our body, and it is not easy. So even with ketogenic diet, we have to drink more water. We have to use more sodium nitrite, sodium chloride. So it is the table salt, so-called table salt, because in this diet it is special that we have to flush our body with water, and we have to drink much more water than with standard diet, but never use any sweet soda and soft drinks. and only just normal water. Okay, that's all. Thank you very much for your attention. I will provide other videos also, and for now that's all.